my understanding is that, the four smaller branches within the OECS sub-region, they have deals on those four branches. They do not yet have a deal on the branch in St. Lucia, nor do they have a
This
deal
is
on the
Antigua
branch
Newsroom.
in Antigua and Barbuda. But one can speculate that they will sell the Antiguan branch and that they will also sell the St. Lucian branch. So our indigenous banks now need to ready themselves for a possible acquisition. And the two banks here that could afford to purchase CIBC Antigua would be ECAB and ACB. And I'm hoping that the management of those two banks, that they are proactive enough to get on to the leadership of CIBC and to start the negotiations, not to allow some other external institution to start those negotiations. You recall that at one point there's a South American entity that had negotiated with CIBC Caribbean and first, what's the name of it now? And whatever it is, FCIB. There was a South American entity that they had negotiated with, and the South American entity had agreed to buy the branches in the OECS. But the transaction was not approved by the central bank for many reasons. So before maybe some other institution comes forward, I want to implore on our bankers here, the directorship and management of ACB and ECAB, even if they have to do a joint venture, that they should approach the directors of CIBC Caribbean as soon as possible and to try and do a deal. I mean, I'm always of the view that those assets should be controlled locally, because we have to try and grow and expand ownership so that we can retain more of those profits for development. I'm happy to see that in the other countries that, the indigenous banks are following the lead of ECAB. As you know, ECAB would have provided leadership on the issue of acquiring these branches of these foreign banks, followed by ACB. And, it's very important that we hold on to those assets. And I believe that our banks, they have the competence, they certainly have the resources to acquire these banks or these branches and to run them effectively. And what will happen in this case, based on the increased domestic ownership, you'll find that the profits are retained here. Our banks will grow bigger, more powerful, they become more viable, because a small bank in today's dispensation is an anachronism. They just cannot survive in today's dispensation. In fact, I believe that the post-COVID situation for ACB and ECAB will be pretty good, and it's because of their size. Had they not grown and they remain small, perhaps, we'll be thinking about some form of government intervention again in order to support them because of the wounds inflicted by COVID. But when banks scale up their asset base and increase their profits, they become more resilient. And that was what was lacking within the banking sector here in Antigua and Barbuda. That is why Bank of Antigua failed. That is why many banks before the Bank of Antigua failure happened, that's why they failed. It was small to survive. That is why the Swiss American National Bank could not survive. That is why subsequently ABI failed as well. They're too small. So in order to sustain our domestic banking sector, our banks must grow inorganically. Now, I had indicated that at some point, ECAB may be in a position as well to acquire further branches of different banking institutions within the OECS. And I'm hoping that the management, that they still have that objective of acquiring other branches of, banks or other banks of that matter within the OECS sub-region. ECAB, I think, is best poised for any acquisition because they would have had the experience of acquiring the Abbey branch as well as Scotia. And certainly if the government has to step in and to assist ECAB in any way to facilitate the acquisition of FCIB, we are prepared to do so because we believe in domestic ownership and that we should continue to expand domestic ownership. It is interesting.